The content of the Tandem Radio program and website is intended for general information purposes only. It's not designed to provide listeners with specific and personal financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or other advice. The views expressed by show hosts, their guests, and callers are their own and should not be construed in any way as opinions of Tandem Radio or the Bridge FM network.
Here we go!
You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will take me into glory, says Psalm 118:24. Good morning, and welcome to Tandem Radio. Here every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I only say that because I want to welcome not only our regional audience in New York and New Jersey area, but also our national and international audience. It's always so good to hear from you on Facebook and on emails and from folks not only across the country, but many times outside the country, and that's always exciting to see and to hear and to know that God's Word goes everywhere. And of course, with the Bridge FM radio stations, you can also have an app on your iPhone or your Droid, and literally listen to the show anywhere you go. I was down in Washington, D.C. last weekend, and was actually listening to the show from there, and it was just exciting to know that God's words have no limits in today's technology, no doubt. So you're listening to Tandem Radio, and if this is your first time tuning in, I'd like to welcome you. I'm your host, Glenn DeLakian, and the goal of our show here is basically twofold. Number one is to glorify God and His Word by showing you that His Word applies to your business life as well as the rest of your life. All is fair in love and war was not what Jesus Christ had in mind. This is like a 24/7 deal. And I know in my early business career, I used to flip the switch on Monday morning and say, hey, now I'm in business mode and leave that church stuff behind. But once the Lord convicted me and I came to Him, it was a whole new story. And it's been my quest ever since that time to see where God's Word fits into my business life as well as the other aspects of what I do in my life. And we hope we can point you to those scriptures today, which we will point out some specifically about our show today. In addition, we bring different business owners and entrepreneurs and people with a business spirit that are believing Christians to the show, and we sit down and chat with them and find out how they succeeded in what they were doing and how their careers are going, and hopefully bring out some information that will help you in your business life Monday morning when you get to the job or to your or where you work or whatever you're doing. And we hope that we'll accomplish both those goals for you today. My background has been business all my life, and my family told me I started when I was 7 years old in my first business, so I'll tend to go with that. And it's been a crazy ride ever since, but it's been a fun one and one that I know God's been in. And my pastor constantly reminds me that business is your ministry, so that's why I stay in it, and so excited to be here on the show and blessed with the opportunity to share with you. As we do each week, we start off with scriptures. God put some scriptures on my heart that relate sometimes directly to the show, and sometimes I wonder, God, what are you trying to say here? But it always comes out by the end of the show. By the way, the concept of the show is the good news on business, and each week we have a different theme, and this week's theme is the music business. We're talking about the music business, and John Albino of Absolute Music is our guest today, and we're going to be talking to him in a minute. John owns a recording studio. He's been out on the road recording. He's an accomplished musician and has so many insights into the music business that I decided just to call the show The Music Business. So we're going to have fun with John in a minute. But let's start off with our scriptures. First off, 1 Chronicles 6:31, the temple musicians. These are the men David put in charge of the music in the house of the Lord after the ark came to rest there. Psalm 149:3, let them praise His name with dancing and make music to Him with timbrel and harp. And Ephesians 5:19, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, sing and make music from your heart to the Lord. Music has been a part of God's plan, I think, from the very beginning, and it's amazing. This First Chronicles is not the first mention of music in the Bible, but it shows how early it was mentioned, and temple musicians were always a part of worship as far as I could see in the Bible. And so music plays an important part in our life, and it's an important part of God's plan for our life. So I'm excited to have someone in today talking about the music business, and based on his website and background, John Albino of Absolute Music absolutely has a lot of experience in that industry. So John, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. It's good to have you. John, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background?
My background is based on music. I had realized from a very early age that's where I was going ahead. At one point I wanted to be a professional baseball player, but I think we all wanted to. And then at one point, very, very early, I realized that music was going to be a part of my life, and basically it was going to be all of my life, and I was going to base my life around it. I found it to be a beautiful gray area, and we just continued on, and today, and here I am, still a musician, and still loving music, and that's where we are right now.
Well, God loves music too, and it's amazing how important that is. I think to especially today's worship. I think people realize it more and more, right? And I got a kick out of reading this Psalm 149:3. Let them praise His name with dancing and make music to Him with a timbrel and harp. I wanted to put you on the spot. Do you know what a timbrel is?
I'm thinking, is it a percussive instrument?
You're on the money, man. Your business. Yeah. I looked it up. I had to look it up. Okay, I'll tell you. It's funny because my family's from a Middle Eastern background, and so my mother used to call a tambourine a daf, and I never knew that was an Arabic word. Mm-hmm. And when I looked this up, timbrel, it said a daf in Arabic or Aramaic, and it's what the Hebrews used to use to put out a beat, so percussion instrument.
Well, can I be really honest with you? I have my fingers crossed on that.
That's okay. Well, both of us on the same spot. I like to get you livened up right when we start. I won't do that too often with each other, right? So John, let's get right into the music business, all right? And first off, where did you get your love of music from?
My love of music came from, I come from a family of musicians.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, it skipped my father. For some reason, my father couldn't play his way out of a paper bag, unfortunately.
Okay.
And at a very, very early age, I had heard stories from my parents that I would be grabbing broomsticks and ladles and singing with the Beatles. And but it was something that was always I felt very, very strong. It was a very happy place for me to be. It was in music. And then at one point, when I was 11 years old, on my 12th birthday. My parents decided to give me guitar lessons because they decided that, let's put this to the test.
Right.
And then from that point on, I've been a musician ever since.
So you started with the guitar?
Yes, sir.
Is that your favorite instrument, still?
It is my favorite, and it's my primary. Very early before that, they had put me in a drum corps that I think was run through the PAL at the time, and you would remember that kind of stuff.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
And I wound up trying to be a drummer initially, and somehow or another it didn't work out, so they wound up putting a bugle in my hand. I did a couple of parades, and that didn't work out. But then, like I said, by my 12th, that was definitely my calling, and is my primary instrument.
Oh, wow. It's funny. It sounds like a similar history. My son Lucas is in the studio today, and he had this similar background. We kind of threw him in the trumpet when he was very young. I don't know, maybe he was 8, 9 years old, and then he eventually got into the guitar, and that's his primary instrument. But that's interesting. Very good. So, what other instruments do you play?
I also play drums. Yes, that still lingered at one point. I can also play fluent bass, which I'm very happy about. And the reason why I can do all these things is because a lot of times guys wouldn't show up for recording sessions, and you had to get the job done.
Right.
And at that point, God willing, I was able to get the job done and able to fool people.
There you go. Point. So we're going to talk about that transition, because you went from one part of your life to another, from performing to in the studio and so forth. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Tell us about the days early. I mean, obviously you were in school, you're taking lessons. So what did you do from there?
What happened was, it was amazing, because at the time when you're first doing this, you don't realize all the reasons why you're doing it, but I wanted to be a rock star. and it's funny because, I like to be really honest that way. I had seen videos, and I said, this is quite a life. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I just kept moving forward. It was the whole rock star thing, but realizing as time went on how much I did love music itself and the performance, the playing part of it, and making music. So I started writing music at a very, very early age.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
And that started moving into much more performance.
Mm-hmm.
I was very blessed. I had my parents that really backed me on everything. They believed in what I did.
Okay.
And from that point forward, there were records, there was touring.
Oh, really?
And then it brought me to the point of marriage. And at that point, I decided I didn't want to go on the road anymore. And then I started a music school.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the touring time. I mean, you said touring, and then there were records. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what I was doing is I was usually a musician that was brought in to get the job done when other musicians couldn't. So I was a hired gun.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, too, I had done some work with the Pretenders, Kiss. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I was basically a studio musician that would come in and get the job done when nobody else could. Or if somebody threw a tantrum, decide to walk out, they would just go into the Rolodex and give me a call. And it's a pretty happy life, and I was very, very happy with it.
And it's funny because I don't think a lot of people realize that's not that uncommon, right? I mean, a lot of times people who play on the recordings are not always the guy who's playing out on the stage, right?
Glenn, let me tell you something. Interesting story. A lot of times when I would do something like that,
right,
and I would have to play for somebody who would remain nameless,
nameless,
what I would have to do is I would have to sign a contract that basically, in layman term, would say, do you see what you just played? You didn't play this.
Right, okay.
And that's how you would get your check.
Okay.
You know, and you know what? It became common, and it become a very, very common thing to do.
Right.
So you would just you would sign off, you would get your check, and you would move forward. And knowing, and basically it would also be that, well, you have to really keep your mouth very quiet on this one. Right. And that's part of the deal.
So it does happen more than we think, right?
It happens, my goodness, it happens more than you could ever imagine.
Really?
You know? But that's part of business. It's about getting it, and it's not that different than any other business.
Sure.
It's about getting the job done and moving forward.
Right.
The music industry is not any different than that.
I hear you. I mean, sometimes, there's a lot, like you said, it's a gray industry. There's a lot of different things to talk about there, and we're going to come back and talk more about that in a minute. We're here at Tandem Radio with John Albino, who has been, all through and in and out and all around the music industry, and we're going to hear so much more about the music business today. You listen to Tandem Radio, and again, we're here every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. By the way, TandemRadio.com is just an excellent resource place to go. There's so much information there. You'll get links there to our guests' information. You'll find out more about what we have coming up. And also, our archive shows are at TandemRadio.com. That's so important to check that out because any topic you want to know about business, you can go there, find that topic, and click on an archive show, and it can help you with your business. In addition, if you want to reach out to us, you have a business question, I love getting emails from you, info@tandemradio.com, info@tandemradio.com. Ask us any business question you'd like, and if we can't get you an answer, we will definitely be praying for your business. But we answer all those emails, and so far we've been able to help people, whatever their questions may be. So info@tandemradio.com. That's info@tandemradio.com. Drop us an email, say hello, and let us know you're listening. Or on Facebook, of course. We always like to chat on Facebook. Again, you're listening to Tandem Radio Live, and we will be back right after these messages. They're important sponsors, so listen up.
2, 1, cut. Hi, my name is Cooper Ford from Tandem Radio, the good news on business. I want to thank you for joining us for this episode. Hopefully you've been getting some fantastic insights from Glenn and our featured guest. While we're taking this break, I want to introduce you to our website at tandemradio.com, where there's a wealth of information focusing on bringing Christian principles into the business world. First of all, we have some of our other archive shows that are on there where you can see some of our past guests and listen to their shows. Second, we also have Ask Tandem, which is our shorter video segments focusing on specific questions related to faith and the workplace. And finally, we have our sponsors, like-minded businesses and professionals who not only share our mission, but also who want to serve you. So check it all out at tandemradio.com. If you want to get in touch with us, you can also email us at info@tandemradio.com. That's info@tandemradio.com. And we look forward to hearing from you. So thanks again for joining us, and let's get back to Glenn and the show. God bless.
Well, welcome back to Tandem Radio. Excited to be here today, talking about the music business. And again, God's had music in our worship for so long, and I think the music business is, of course, started very early in the history of mankind. First Chronicles 6:31, for example, the temple musicians were mentioned. It says the temple musicians, these are the men David put in charge of the music in the house of the Lord after the ark came to rest there. And of course, David even made instruments, played instruments, sang, and was a very musical individual and an artist in his own right in many, many ways. And so we're here talking about the music business with John Albino, who is not only a performer and an accomplished guitarist and has quite a history, but also is the owner of Absolute Music. He also has a music school and a recording studio and a foundation and so much more. So we're going to get right into talking to John so we can cover every aspect of what he has in store for us. So we were talking as we before the break, John, about the hired gun concept where you were called in the studios and fill in for people, and I think that's just amazing how much of that goes on. But the music industry is, it's glitzy, it grabs people's eyes, but it's still very mysterious to most people. And like you mentioned about the business aspect of it, like it's very much a business too, and I think a lot of people miss that. Why do you think that is?
The reason why is because when you're looking at it, like you said, it's so starstruck and glitzy and glamorous, and it's something that can draw just about anybody into, and when they're looking at it, they feel that that's 100% of their life.
Right.
So they go in with no business sense, feeling that it's quote unquote enchantment that's going to get them through.
Right.
And as many people that go in, you have 1 millionfold who won't understand it and could possibly mess up because they don't understand it. You have to understand, like any other business, it is a business, and it has to be treated that way. So you better get yourself a really good attorney.
Then would it be right to say that in order to make it in the business industry, you, in addition to talent, or at least a certain degree of talent, you don't have to be the best, right? I mean, to be successful from the world's view, but you not only have to have talent as a musician, but you either have to have a good business head or know enough to have somebody working with you as a good business head.
Well, we all realized a long time ago, and I'm sure you do too, Glenn, that talent is not always, at the forefront. But yes, it absolutely helps, like in anything else, having some business sense, learning some business sense. So I would recommend to all very, very young musicians who are in school and going to college, guys, if you're going to do it, try and get some education while you're doing it, and don't just rely on the glitz that you see out there, because there's so much more. And you're only as good as the people around you, so I also believe that you should surround yourself with good people. Good people who have a good business sense, but also are good, they have a really, really great heart into getting the job done, and getting the job done correctly and right.
That's so important.
And right is when I say right, it's a huge word when it comes to that.
So for those people who are in college right now, you're thinking business degree with a minor in music, or music degree with a minor in business, right?
Absolutely. And I hear it all the time. And when I hear it, I just put a smile on my face and say, you know what? He's got half a chance.
There you go. So let's talk about on the road a little bit, all right? So you went through, obviously, you got out of school, were playing music, loved to perform. You did a lot of studio work, which sounds exciting, which led, obviously, to where you are today. But let's talk about being on the road, performing live. You're writing music, right? You're out there in bands. Tell us a little about that.
It is, for me, I have to say, it was amazing. I was very, very, very lucky, very fortunate. I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a drugger. The only thing I did smoke cigarettes at one point, but, praise God, I gave that up in '93. So going out for me was very, very, very exciting. I loved a tour bus because, basically, to be honest with you, I slept so well on a tour bus, I guess, because of the wheels moving. Okay. We had Van Halen's tour bus to go out on the road, and I loved performing. I loved the road. Everything. My rider consisted of food and Snapple. And basically that was it. So I really, really, really did enjoy it. I had a great experience, and gang, I got to tell you something. A lot of times you're not going to hear that story. Right. Okay. People have great experiences, but they also have horrific experiences. Right. I was quite lucky in that, but so I've always felt that I was made to be on the road at that time. Right.
And, being in this industry, I mean, I might be jumping ahead here, and we'll come back to the touring, but when did you realize, God's hand was in this for you, that He was on it?
I realized something had happened to me, and it seemed to be just this random act. I realized in my mid-20s that, and I tell the story quite often, I was at a flea market, and I was there to pick up a birthday present for my mother. And at the time, I think I only had $50. But maybe at that time, that was a lot of money. And I had a $50 bill in my pocket. And I was walking around looking for something. And I don't know if you've ever seen people, but people who lose money and they're in the middle of a flea market, some of them get so completely irate. So what happened was I was walking around. I found something for her. I went into my pocket. and I realized it was gone.
Oh, wow.
And for some reason, I don't know what happened, my whole attitude changed. And I remember saying to myself, wow, Lord, I hope it goes to somebody who really needed it. And I think that's when everything changed. I think that was the initial transition to a better attitude and looking up at God and saying, I hope you give it to somebody who really needed it. I would tell you, a year before that, I probably wouldn't have actually acted that way.
Okay.
And that was it. That's where I started.
So God started moving in your life pretty early in your career then?
Yes, sir. You know what? Maybe I might not have realized how much. But, I mean, he kept me clean. He kept me away from drugs. He kept me away from alcohol. I absolutely believe this, and I believe because it was a bigger picture for the future. And, when you think of the Lord, it always is. It always is that, look, there's a bigger picture ahead of you. Right. Okay, and I'm going to need you. And that's the way, I might not have realized it.
Now, let's go back to the touring a little bit, because I think this is curious, especially a guy walking the Christian walk. Did you feel ostracized at all by not doing drugs, by not drinking, by not doing what everybody else was doing?
It was interesting. It was something, it was amazing because I was so blessed because it was something initially, I just didn't have a feeling to do it.
Right.
When everybody else did, and yes, it happens, or when you're at a hotel and the rest of the band is drinking, I basically would grab a book and I would go into my bunk and I would go to sleep. And it was a safe place for me. I didn't feel that I was missing out. I didn't feel that any kind of peer pressure. Okay. So again, I got to tell you, I was one of the lucky guys. Very, very lucky, because a lot of times in the music industry, as you know, you don't hear these stories.
Right. Yeah, and I have a very good friend that goes on tour and he's an actor, and he goes on tour, and some of the things he tells me, and it's funny because he'll call when he's feeling ostracized, and he'll call and we'll just pray on the phone and try to help him through all that. So I could imagine, I'm really glad to hear that you didn't feel a lot of that pressure in what you were doing.
Again, folks, I was really one of the lucky ones. There's so much temptation out there and peer pressure, even in your 30s, even in your 40s, in the entertainment field, the feeling that almost, I need to do this to basically fit in and make things work. And you really, really don't, believe it or not, when you look at it in the long run, people are going to respect you much more that you have your act together and you don't have to lean on other things.
Right. So you're on the road, you did this for a while, and you decided the road wasn't where it's at, or somehow you decided to get into literally your own business, right? You wanted to do a studio, or was that prompted by wanting to settle down?
What happened was, that's exactly what happened. I was engaged on my last tour, and all of a sudden when we came off, I was offered some other tours, and I decided that this is probably not the place that I should be, especially we're going to move on, and I'm going to get married, and kids were absolutely in the equation. So I had decided at that point, again, being lucky, saying, I really like playing, but you know what, we can find another way to make this work. We're going to stay home. Okay. That was it.
And so that's when you decided to start a studio business?
Yes, sir. I had gotten a phenomenal offer to go out with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page.
Oh, really?
And what had happened was, this was after we had settled down, we had gotten a house, and on the same week my wife told me that she was pregnant with our first, and then there was no question. And I thank God that he brought me so far to the other side of saying, you're not going anywhere.
Oh, really?
And, and I've never looked back. I've got a great story knowing I could have played with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, and that's good enough for me, and I've never regretted it. My children are absolutely amazing and beautiful, and I thank God I have them every day.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
Oh, great.
I have a daughter who's 15 and a son who is 13.
Oh, God bless.
God help me. Yes.
That's great. I remember that age. Every age was a wonderful age, I felt. We were blessed. We didn't go through those terrible twos and all that stuff, so... But good for you. You got exciting stuff coming ahead. And wait till college comes.
I know.
So where was your wife's head at during all this? Did she say to you, you're not going on the road? Or was it something that she said, hey, look, I love you, and what's your decision? Whatever your decision is, that's what we're going to do.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. That's a great story, and I'm going to keep it short. I never told her about the Robert Plant, Jimmy Page gig. Right. I felt that at that time that would have put pressure on the marriage and put pressure on her. Unfortunately, she found out about 8.5 months later. Somebody had told her about it, and it was not something that I believe that could be brought up. I didn't want to put pressure on the marriage at the time.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, you had some unique insights there, and God obviously gave you discernment and wisdom and brought you to where you are today. John, I want to thank you so much for being here today. We have so much more to talk about in the next couple of segments, so thanks for being in on this. You're listening to the Good News on Business, Tandem Radio, here every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We love to hear from you at info@tandemradio.com, info@tandemradio.com, or on Facebook. You can jump on Facebook right now if you'd like and chat with us and let us know where you're at and what you're thinking. Put a post on there. Let us know what your business is all about. We love to hear from business owners, especially those walking with the Lord. And if you're not walking with the Lord, let us help you to find God's wisdom in His book and how that can help you with your business every day. It's been the most valuable tool of my life, and I think it can be for you as well. We'll be right back right after these words. Well, welcome back to Tandem Radio Live. I'm your host, Glenn DeLakian, here talking about the music business today with somebody who's quickly becoming, in my mind, the music man, John Albino, who is the owner of Absolute Music, a recording studio, a music school, and so much more. And we're talking about the business of music and how it relates to our Christian walk, and also how it may relate to your business. The scriptures for today are First Chronicles 6:31. The temple musicians, these are the men David put in charge of the music in the house of the Lord. After the ark came the rest there. Psalm 149:3. Let them praise His name with dancing and make music to Him with timbrel and harp. And Ephesians 5:19. Speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, sing and make music from your heart to the Lord. So obviously God has had music on the heart since the beginning of man, and it's so important that we realize that. And it's great to be with people who make that music. It's just so an exciting thing. I think that's why the music industry is so wild as it is, because people like to be around creativity, they like to be around music, and so forth and so on. And somebody who's been around music all their life is John, who's here in the studio with us this morning again. Thanks, John, for being here.
My pleasure, man.
Well, we have so much to cover, we want to squeeze it in 2 quick segments, so because that's all we have left for today. But we'll get you back, because I know there's a lot more to talk about here. So you went from being on the road, got married, transitioning, and then all of a sudden you decided to get in your own business. So where did you start with that?
I started by teaching as a solo teacher. I had realized earlier that when I was on the road, when I was coming off the road, I actually got a lot of pleasure out of teaching, because when you come off the road and the checks aren't coming in anymore, you have to figure out how to take care of yourself. Yeah. I started teaching, realizing that, wow, it was very rewarding, it was fulfilling, and I got to tell you something, it was a lot of fun. So what happened was, when the decision not to go back at all was made, I actually took a full-time job to make sure that I can support my family, and then in the meantime started my business, which was teaching. And we built our reputation, and we kept moving forward into the school that we have today that we're really, really proud of.
Tell us a little about the school.
Well, the school is based on, the teaching goes from A to Z. We teach basically everything now, and I'm very, very, very proud of it. We've got an excellent staff, very, very learned staff, and I'm happy to say that my Christian teachers outnumber my secular teachers.
That's good.
It's a great feeling. We've been so truly blessed that when you walk in, it's amazing. It's almost like a Doctor Who movie. From the outside, it looks like a small little mom and pop store, and I love that feeling. Right. When you walk in, the place just is so wide open, and there's so much to look at. A lot of memorabilia. Really? That goes all the way down to about 150 feet to the back, where our recording studio, which Led Zeppelin could record there. So I'm very, very proud of that. The whole look and the feel of the place is absolutely amazing.
That's great.
And that's what we're doing today.
And so you started with the school. What ages come to the school?
It starts at 4. We won't take under 4. Believe it or not, 4 is still a good age.
Right.
And what we do is, even with 4, we kind of monitor it. We kind of make sure it's okay. But if they can't really deal with it at 4, they've already had an experience with music. They can come back a year from now and say, you know what, that was pretty cool. But having a better sense of understanding it. Right. And that goes from 4 to 104.
Well, obviously playing an instrument is not for everybody. How do you discern that? I mean, let's say a 5-year-old comes in and the parents are saying, here, I want him to learn how to play guitar. How do you know if that student at least has some aptitude to move forward with it?
It's time. So what we usually do is with a very, very young student like that, we usually give it 4 lessons, just a month, once a week. At that point, we monitor. The teacher will come out, talk to me, say, here's what we have, and then I go talk to the parents. If we really do feel that he's not ready, we tell the parents.
Right.
So, but listen, he had a great experience, and it's been our record that times when that has happened, student has come back 2 years later and was ready to go.
Right. Do you find a lot of parents pushing the kids, like just going in there and almost living vicariously? I want my kid to play guitar.
Well, you know what? It has happened. It has happened. But even with that, we have to be, very, 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 very straight with them. Just like my dad. My grandfather wanted my father to play so bad, and it wasn't going to happen. So we really go on experience. We go on our own experience. We go on monitoring the student and seeing how he's going to do.
And what ages do you cover?
What ages?
I mean, you said they start at 4 or 5. What's your oldest student?
My oldest student, I believe, is 74.
Okay.
And you know what? She's very, very sweet. By the way, Christian too. My goodness, we're so blessed. And she shows up every week.
And you said you do all instruments.
All instruments.
Okay, very interesting.
Oh, by the way, too, even the accordion. I'm not supposed to say that. We even do the accordion.
Hey, my father-in-law plays the accordion.
There you go. Well, if he needs a job, let
There
me
you
know.
go. I'll make sure I mention that to him for sure. So you also then added on to your business recording studio.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
It was something that I always wanted to do. I felt in today's time and what's going on in the music industry, it would, in a lot of people's opinions, was probably the worst decision you could possibly make. But it was something that I felt strong about. I felt that we could bring quality. All right, everybody, no matter what, you can buy a diamond, but it's the black diamond that you're looking for a lot of times. And we always pray that we're the black diamond in the industry. We've got a beautiful place. The Lord is absolutely there. We've got a great sounding place with great atmosphere. It's all about getting the performance down. So it's something that we felt really, it was amazing because a good friend of mine said to me at one time, I was so psyched to do it. And he looked at me and goes, have you prayed about it? And I went, yeah, no. And he goes, well, don't you think so? And what we did, we prayed about it. We prayed and prayed and prayed. And you know what? I've never looked back. It was the right decision, and we're truly happy.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Obviously, God's been important to your life, and prayer is important to you. I hope it's more important to you every day. I mean, I'm a big proponent of prayer. Matter of fact, I'm preaching at my church next week about that. But how's God impacted your life? I mean, obviously, you've talked about it, but really, what would you say, how has Jesus Christ actually impacted your career to bring you to where you are today?
To bring me to where I was a segment of some bad situations that came together. And and it's funny too, because a lot of times I knew he was always there, but you had to be brought to the end of your means a lot of times. And I remember I was facing divorce. I had actually some people who were trying to take over my business at the time. Wow. And I had some good friends who were students who were Christian, and we talked and we talked and we talked, and at that given point, I decided that, this is where I really want to be. And you know what, guys, I got to tell you something, I'm telling you straight out, without God, without the Lord, the amazing things that we have been able to do truly are a miracle, and I never would have been able to do it, and I do absolutely believe I never would have done it without Him. Absolutely.
And God does come through. He does give you the desires of your heart, right?
Oh, yes, yes. And you know what? It is a lot of prayer. It is a lot of prayer. A lot of times, just ask the Lord to get you through this one day, and to move forward to the next. Right. And there was a point I was doing that about 30 times a day. And
I still have those days.
Please, I know that for sure.
That's great, and it's powerful to know that, because I try to stress to business owners, sometimes, I sat with a friend of mine yesterday who I mentor, and he's having some struggles in life that are affecting his business, And I keep telling them it comes back to God. Look and see, especially if you're struggling. You got to look and see, what is God trying to tell me here? What does God want me to see or learn or get out of this experience? And it makes the experience livable, bearable. You can work through it because God's in it with you. God doesn't promise to take us out of circumstance. He promises to go through it with us. And I'm glad you mentioned about the breakdown, because so often when I get an opportunity to teach, I often talk about there's got to be breakdown before there's breakthrough. And God just brings us to an all new place when we let Him. And it's exciting to hear that happen in your life too.
It wouldn't have happened any other way. But again, it's been an amazing experience, and I still look around me every day, and I praise God that I can get up and have my cup of coffee in the morning and go to work and have what we have, and that's why we try and do as much as we can for the community.
And love what you do at the same time.
Absolutely.
That's great, John. I know we got so much more to talk about, and you even have a foundation. Let's just give the title real quick, because I want to come back in the next segment and talk about Precision Tuned to Musically Inspire Children.
Yes, sir. We run a recital every single year to help a community-based problem. And what we do is we always wanted our own foundation to help. When we see so many parents, so many kids, families struggling, not being able to make their music lessons, not being able to get an instrument, we are here to help them get through their problems, to keep their kids happy and moving forward in music. So what it does is it takes care of their lessons. Underprivileged kids, it takes care of instruments that they couldn't probably afford, and it also goes all the way up to music college scholarship.
And we're going to talk more about that in the next segment. John, thank you again. It's exciting to hear about all this, and I know there's so much more to talk about. We're here today at Tandem Radio talking about the music business with someone who has quite an extraordinary career in music, not only in performance, but all the way through to a business of his own, recording studio, school, and even now our foundation. We'll see how John brought this round full circle. And we thank God for all His blessings and all the mosaics of the body of Christ that all come together to make this a glorious life in Him. So you're listening to Tandem Radio, the good news on business, here every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with not only our regional audience, but our national and international audience. Love hearing from you on Facebook. Feel free to check us out, Tandem Radio. Just type it in on Facebook. And don't forget to watch Ask Tandem with host Cooper Ford. Ask Tandem is just a dynamic segment that's out there on YouTube and on our website. And just a great video for you to watch. Tune in, stay tuned, I should say. Check out our sponsors. We'll be back after this. Well, welcome back to Tandem Radio Live, the good news on business. This is your host, Glenn DeLakian, and just deep in the throes of talking about the music business in Ephesians 5:19, which is one of our scriptures today. Speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, sing and make music from your heart to the Lord. God just loves music, and He loves to hear us sing and make music to the Lord. So we have someone in here who loves to sing and make music, and that's John Albino, who is the owner of Absolute Music, which is a music studio, also a music school, and so much more too. A place, a sanctuary for some people, and it sounds like just a fun place that people need to visit. He's over in Hazlet, New Jersey. If you want to reach John, go to tandemradio.com. There'll be a link to John's website there. You'll be able to contact him and ask questions from him, and maybe even find out the address of where he is and come visit if you're local enough, or even if you're not local, it's probably worth the trip. Again, we want to thank our regional audience and national audience as well. It's always good to hear from you at info@tandemradio.com. Or on Facebook, Tandem Radio on Facebook. Just type it in. You'll see photos there, videos there, all kinds of great stuff. We love to hear from you. So we're talking about the music business today, and John, you've had quite an extensive career, and it kind of spanned all kinds of areas. So not just playing music, but so much more. Let's talk about, first of all, I wanted to ask you, you're a musician, right? You wrote music, but you also have a recording studio. You also are you a businessman, engineer, musician? What are you?
Well, I believe I'm a businessman. No, I believe I'm a musician, businessman,
Okay.
Because it's your first love. We have engineers. I'm part of the production when it comes to the studio. So if somebody comes in and he needs help guiding to get through that song, or to hopefully make it better, and Lord, I hope I can make it better. That's I would come in for something like that. But we have a staff of engineers that work there. Okay, and I'm also there for performance. So if you still need a guitar player, I am there for you.
So you're still the guy that'll fill in on that CD form.
Yes, sir. We won't say anything to anybody.
All right. John, the music industry has been through so much transition. Obviously, technology alone has changed dramatically year to year like crazy. Tell us some of the changes you've seen in the industry as a whole over the last 20, 30 years.
I've seen the stationary way of people getting signed to record companies basically dissolve. But, gang, I got to tell you something. I don't ever want you guys to feel discouraged over this, because what happens is a lot of times when a mousetrap is working, somebody just builds a better one, and sometimes you don't realize it. There's other ways to go about things. The internet is not your enemy in the sense when it comes to trying to get your music out. Right. It's probably the best way of doing it and probably the least expensive way. So I would say go with the technology. Don't look at it as your enemy. Look at it as just a new tool to get your music out there. Now you have YouTube, you have so many websites to get it out there. What will happen is sooner or later somebody's going to stand up, they're going to look, they're going to take notice, and then the whole process keeps moving for you. So the first thing is have a love for what you do. A great writer once said that if you truly love what you do, you'll figure out a way to make money at it. Okay? So follow. There's no reason that you can't follow your dream, especially if you really love what you do, and let that be first when it comes to the feeling. All right? And I absolutely believe that the Lord should be in your life. He's in my life. I could never have done the things that I've been able to do without him. And I'm telling you straight out, guys. Okay? So those two things are most important.
And, I want to touch on something there because, again, you mentioned the Lord, and I know that's very important to your life, and I'm glad about that. That's why you're here. Is there still, like, when people look at the music industry, should parents, for example, be concerned about the ethical issue, or can a good Bible-believing Christian still be successful in the industry like you've become?
Yes and yes. Yes, absolutely. A good Bible-believing musician could absolutely become very successful. And parents, speaking as a parent, you should always look. You should always look. You should always watch. Please take notice of what your kids are doing, especially in the music industry, with everything that they do. My kids think I'm absolutely ridiculous sometimes, but I do believe that at one point they're going to look and say, you know what? Thank God I had my dad. Thank God that he overlooked everything that I did. But the music industry, no. You have to keep an eye on what's going on, no matter what.
Right.
And please try and be a part of their decision-making when it comes to that kind of stuff, their guidance.
With that said, what kind of life can a musician really expect?
A musician, based on his beliefs and truths, can have a wonderful life. It is a again, we're going to keep saying it is a business. It's not an easy business, but anything worthwhile in life is not easy. Okay, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to work at it constantly, and your true belief in it is what is going to get you through. Okay, so yeah, I would say that that's what you should expect: hard work, dedication. Okay, talent is only going to get you so far.
Right.
Okay, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in God. You have to believe that you can go out there and get it done. All right, and if you stop, like my dad used to say, the minute that you put your cards in, the game is over. So stay strong and keep moving forward.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. You can do anything you want in your life. I absolutely believe it. And I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker, folks. I hope I am, but I'm not. It's just my personal experience.
Right. Now, I think I had asked you earlier in the show, do you have a funny story?
Yes, I have a very funny story.
Hopefully a quick one.
We're going to make it very, very quick. What happened was there was a time when we started hopefully inspiring people. It was about the time I was coming to the Lord, and there was one particular guy who would always come in, and he would look for advice, and we could tell he was a very troubled guy. And we hadn't seen him for a couple of weeks, and at one point, with a full-packed house sitting in my waiting area, we seen him walking across the glass, and he walked in, and he went into the middle of the room, stuck his hands up, and just went, "I just got out of jail." And I said, so we were all in shock. So I said, "So this is the first place you came?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I just walked out just now." He goes, "I'm stuck in now." So I guess there's a backhanded compliment there somewhere, but plenty of stories, but that one just comes to light for me because we felt so way blessed that he came to see us first.
Well, there you go. When you first come out of jail, come and see John first. Is that what you're trying to say, John? John, real quick, I want to take a serious note real quick for 1 minute because we're at the end of the show. Speak to the young musician out there that may be listening right now. Maybe his parents just dragged him to the radio. He's playing something, doing something. Young musician, talk to him for a minute.
What I would say to you guys is believe in yourself. Put your trust in the Lord. Forge ahead. If you truly believe in what you do, I absolutely believe in you too, and I believe that you can make something out of yourself. The love of music is usually the first thing that hits us, but there's so much more to it. Know that you're going to have to work really, really hard, but know that, you know what, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so believe in yourself, put your faith in the Lord, move forward, be strong, and try not to let any negative influence come about to you, your family, or your business.
Excellent, John. Excellent. John Albino of Absolute Music. John, what's your website for your business?
It is www.absolutemusic-nj as in New Jersey.com.
All right, give it one more time.
www.absolutemusic-nj.com.
John, I want to thank you so much for coming in. I know you have a busy schedule. I appreciate you spending some time with us today.
It's been my pleasure, Glenn. Thank you so much.
Please give my regards to your wife and beautiful children. Hopefully I'll get the pleasure of meeting them someday.
Yes, sir.
And I know you have a great event at your studio today, and you have always things going on down there. So people, feel free to visit John, give him a call, give him a shout, check him out. Go to tandemradio.com and find out how to reach John. And you can even watch this show. We actually video the show, and that'll be up on the website in the weeks ahead, and you'll be able to check that out. Don't forget Ask Tandem. If you haven't seen Ask Tandem, A-S-K, Tandem, you need to get on Facebook, find out about Ask Tandem, and watch those videos. Just powerful stuff there, especially if you're a college-age student or someone new in business. Ask Tandem with Cooper Ford is the place you want to be. I want to thank Lucas for coming in today and running the studio, and Allie for pulling it all together for all our shows, as she always does, and Cooper Ford for being in the studio to help us as well. You have a blessed weekend, and remember, God loves you and wants the desires of your heart for you, and His Word has the last word on everything, including your business. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to The Good News on Business, a Tandem Radio live broadcast heard here on the Bridge FM radio network and streaming at tandemradio.com. Don't forget to join us every Saturday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and call us and email us with your questions, because we'd love to hear from you. You can also visit our website for the latest blogs from Peter and Glenn, along with other information about upcoming guests, events, and business opportunities. I'm Kevin Reeves, and from everyone at Tandem Radio, we hope that you have a blessed week, and remember, walk with the Lord every day, in every way.